You are listening to Your Financial Journey, where planning matters. Brought to you by Risk-Free Solutions, an accredited Old Mutual Agency franchise. The show that helps you make quality decisions and thrive.
Trying to help you make quality decisions when it comes to one of the most important documents you will ever sign. It's not the sick note for the exams. It's actually your will to sort it out for the kids, particularly if they are underage. We've got Vernon Rathbone in studio with us, as well as Vernon Rathbone. If you want to get in touch with them, Risk-Free Solutions. How's it working with regards to COVID and lockdown? I mean, or people that are listening all over the country. How do you guys connect with them?
Well, even, obviously we all had to adapt to the new way of seeing clients. So yes, MS Teams, Zoom meetings, those type of appointments are taking place. And that's how we see our clients. It's a matter of we still there to assist. And a person's not limited to face-to-face consultation.
All right, makes it nice and easy. Just reminding you also, I heard a story about somebody wanting to update their will, but it was a husband and a wife, and the husband had suffered with a stroke or something, and his mental faculties were not 100% there. In this scenario, how does that work?
All right, so I think the law is very clear. Whoever puts a will together has to be of sound mind. So obviously, if the husband put the will together and he was of sound mind, that will is very valid. If the sound mind is not there, I think you're going to have to seek legal advice to be able to look at amending that will, because it's not going to be a straightforward thing. I think you're going to have to approach a lawyer. You're going to have to go to court to be able to change what's in that will. If that makes sense.
Even if wife has power of attorney, that doesn't float?
No, because he was of sound mind when he did the will. So we can't just disregard that. We can't just say, well, he was of sound mind when he put it together, but now he's not great now. So at that point in time, that becomes null and void. No, you can't do that. So it becomes very complicated, Gareth, Ethan. So it's not a quick answer.
Okay.
It's really not a quick answer. I think legal expertise has to come into play to be able to see what's the best course of action
right.
in that instance. I don't think it's simple. I think there's a lot at play, and there's a lot to be considered in that instance.
I'll give you one other instance. If I am in an accident and I am, let's say, in a vegetative state, can I put it in my will, switch the machines off?
You can put it in your will, but in South Africa, it's a matter again that's for the doctors to decide whether they want to put the machines off, yes or no,
Yeah, I think that's another legal issue.
Asking you tricky questions.
Yeah, no, that's another legal issue, because I don't know. I'm not sure what the law in the country says regarding that. So I think the law will dictate if we can switch the machines off. We know that the rest of the world, there's certain decisions that were made that you can do that, but in South Africa, I'm not sure what the law is around that.
And this is why you need legal counsel. This is why you need advice. This is why you need to get in touch with Vernon and the team at Risk-Free Solutions. They can pursue these areas. Now, ask you another one. If
Yes.
I live here, but I've got assets overseas, does the law overseas apply to those assets, or again, do they come to you and you work out a specific solution for them?
Yeah, so I mean, the will would be specific to the assets within South Africa. I think one of the questionnaires within the will is, do you have assets outside of South Africa? If you do, then we need to look at that separately and look at what the laws in that country says, and then again, we're going to have to bring a legal person in to be able to look at the laws of that country so that everything works together, your assets in South Africa and what's happening overseas. So the long and the short answer is the current will that we do would be what's in South Africa, your assets within South Africa, and then we will look at your assets overseas and put together another document for the assets overseas.
That's why the will only forms part of the estate planning.
100%.
Right.
Even just to add to what Vernon has said there, that's why when we do our wills, it's done through Old Mutual, and there's legal representatives involved. So we assist in drafting the will, but the final will document, according to the legal procedures of that, is been drawn up in Old Mutual with the lawyers and
with
stuff
the trust
involved.
experts, yes.
That's right.
As opposed to somebody saying, well, I want Harvey to be the executor.
Yeah,
Umkhavi is going to have to appoint a legal person to do it, because if the estate's very complicated, there's no ways the normal lay person would be able to do the will. You would have to get legal advice. And a lot of guys try to do that, but they end up hiring an attorney or somebody
Which costs you buckets and buckets of money.
100%. Yeah, and I think part of estate planning is that, to make provision for what it will cost the executor to handle your estate. That is part of the financial planning process, because people might say, but it costs a lot of money. Yes, it does. But if you put it as part of your financial plan, it's actually taken care of in the plan that's in place to make sure all those costs are covered.
I urge you to go and get a free will and a consultation around your estate planning. Contact Risk Free Solutions. Just lastly, Vernon, updating wills, how important is this?
Well, Ethan, I personally feel that a will is a working document. You update your financial plan on an annual basis. We see our clients at least once a year. Obviously, if it's a bigger type client and you need to see them twice a year, we do that as well. But yes, updating the will should be an annual update, because the person's circumstances change.
Yeah, births, deaths, whatever have you.
That's right. As you said, births. You've experienced it on your side now.
I have.
So, is your will stating, or is it your will including your child?
Exactly.
So, and as you say, death does occur. Unfortunately in South Africa, the divorce rate is quite high as well. So, you might sit with a will that was drawn up 5-6 years ago. You got remarried, but everything still goes to the ex-spouse. And how's mommy going to feel about that? So it's important to update on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Lastly.
And Ethan, I just want to say, when I was on the show with Gareth Burley, one thing we spoke about was the concept of team, and that's something that I really believe strongly in. And I think we've been around for the last 15 years as a franchise of Old Mutual. And the thing that we really built on is team. So, if you're a client out there, and one of our financial planners talks to you, you'll know that he's not acting alone. He's got a team behind him, because every situation, there's a group of guys at the back that can look at his situation. And if we don't know all the answers, we can tap into further skills to be able to come up with the best solution for you as a client out there. And that's very important, I think. You can't just rely on one person to make all the decisions for you. You need to know that individual has a group or a team behind them that they can consult, talk to, talk about the scenario, talk about what they think would be the best outcome for you as a client. And for me, that's very important.
Yeah, it's not Han Solo over here. It's a team that you are looking to have work out the best solution for you. Risk-Free Solutions. Get in touch with them. Go online. Go onto Facebook. Pop them an email. riskfreesolutions.co.za. It's plain and simple. Thanks for your time. Don't forget Free Wills Month and a free opportunity for you to get some good estate advice. Thanks for your time, guys.
Thanks, Ethan.
Thanks, Ethan.
You have been listening to Your Financial Journey, where planning matters. Brought to you by Risk-Free Solutions, an accredited Old Mutual agency franchise. Tune in weekly to the show that leads the way so that no one gets left behind. Every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. right here on 107.5 FM.
Your motivation station. This is Kingfisher FM. PE's #1 Christian contemporary station, Kingfisher FM.
Great to have you with us, and our very first insert, or very first time that we're chatting to Vernon de Vos. Vernon, lovely to have you in studio with us. How are you, mate?
No, doing well. And yourself, Ethan?
Yeah. I can't complain. I heard you were on Gareth Burley's show the other day talking about financial matters and whatnot.
Yes. No, we had a good time.
If you missed that, I hope we'll rebroadcast.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and Gareth loves talking about golf. So that financial
Did you have to use
was
a lot
all
of
about golf.
golf analogies?
Yeah, I know.
In the rough. Okay, cool. Today you brought a special guest through.
Yes.
Just tell us a little bit more about our guest.
Okay, so I've brought with me Vernon Rathbone. He's one of my financial planners. He's been with me for 11 years, Ethan. So welcome, Vernon. Also another Vernon, so
Yep.
don't get confused. I'm Vernon DeForce. This is Vernon Rathbone. So you're going to hear a lot of Vernons today. So
Vernon, over to Vernon. Hey, Vernon.
Hi, good afternoon, Ethan. Good afternoon, Vernon. And yes, good afternoon to the listeners as well.
Now, the reason you've been brought in today is it seems like you're pretty jacked up when it comes to what's happening in November. November's a special month besides it being sort of Black November or whatever. There's another reason that November is pretty important to people. What's that for?
Yes, Ethan, it actually starts in the last week of October already, whereby people are getting more and more upskilled on wills, and we're running a whole campaign on wills over the November period.
I actually heard something the other day on another radio station, and this lady was talking about you need to go to an attorney and you need to work at all your assets, and it's going to cost you a few grand. But I was like, hang on a minute. I think you guys actually have something on offer as well. So just enlighten folks about wills.
Yes, I think from our side, we can offer a client a free will. Obviously, your will is part of your estate planning, and it's important when you do an estate plan to know that your will is in place. The important part is to know that your will also stay liquid within the whole process of drawing up your will and knowing that your estate will be liquid.
Okay, so when you say liquid, what are you meaning?
That, a lot of people want to say, I want to give my car to my son, I want to give the proceeds of my policy to my wife, but then there's no money in the estate to pay for the debt that's in the estate. And that's what it's important for us to have somebody professional to assist and help and say, well, listen, it's all good and well. We can give a portion of the policy to the wife, but we also need to have money in the estate to pay for the estate fees, master's fees, and all of those type of debts that it might occur.
Yeah.
And so often people only wake up to this when somebody's passed away.
100%. And you know, Gareth, for us, it's actually a very simple calculation. Like most things, you know, it's like doing a budget. You know, so when somebody passes away, actually what we look at all the assets that person owned within that estate. But not only do we look at the assets, we also look at the debt within the estate. And that's the big thing, and I think that's what Vernon's referring to. How do you secure your assets for your family if there's debt? You can't. You have to clear the debt to secure the assets. And I think that is why it's so important, you know, and that is why a lot of people out there, and when we talk about wills, it's probably one of the most important documents you will sign and put together in your life. Because, you know, think about it. You work your whole life, you gather all these assets, you have a family, and then you pass away, and the necessary stuff is not in place to secure those assets for your family. And I think it's crazy. You know, and that's why I'm excited, you know, for the month of November. It's Free Wills Month, you know. So if you don't have a will, you know, you need to give us a call so that we can sit with you, have a chat with you about what's important to you, what's important to your family, and let's put together the will. I think it's an important document, and like I said, probably the most important document you will sign ever.
All right. So I think I just want to quickly go to a story, because I know you've got a true story for us, Vernon, just to sort of put it into context for folks.
Even yes, you know, this happened probably about 3-4 years ago. John and Mary, happily married couple, 2 kids, 8 years old and 11 years old. And one Wednesday morning, the vehicle had to go for a service. Mary decided she's going to drop the kids off at school. John will pick her up from the dealership where her car is, have a quick breakfast before dropping her off at the hair salon that she owned. And yeah, unfortunately, on the way to the hair salon after picking her up from the dealership, they were involved in a head-on collision there close to 4 ways in Johannesburg area, and both John and Mary passed away in this accident. Obviously, leaving 2 minor kids orphaned. But fortunately for them, there was a will in place. John met with his financial advisor quite often, and everything could be sorted out, and the estate could go to the kids in the format where there was a guardian appointed in the will, and it was not a matter of John or Mary's estate going or dying interstate.
And I think what you touch on, we're going to go to a quick break, just the fact that the kids are minors, it makes it even more important to have a will.
Absolutely. And I mean, you as a new father as well, I mean, it's something that a person needs to look at.
Yeah, because my wife just said, we need to update our will. I'm like, yeah. We're talking wills, free will campaign this month, and we had to help.
You're listening to Your Financial Journey, where planning matters. Brought to you by Risk-Free Solutions, an accredited Old Mutual Agency franchise. The show that helps you make quality decisions and thrive.
It's all about quality decisions today, talking about a will, one of the most important documents that you'll ever put together. And Vernon Rathbone in studio today to give us some pointers on this. Every single Thursday we'll be touching on various aspects of financial planning. We mentioned a good story about a happy ending, in a sense, a family passing away, mom and dad, kids were left. Fortunately, there was a will in place. But maybe you can paint the picture for us if that will wasn't there. What happens?
Gareth, yes, sad, because that would have meant dying interstate, and all of a sudden the accountability of what happens to the assets becomes to that of the state and no longer your wishes as the person who passed on.
So what does that mean?
That basically would, in that specific case, would have meant that the High Court, would decide on who would be the guardian for the kids, because both the natural parents aren't there anymore. And obviously the money that the kids would have inherited or will inherit will go into the Guardians Fund.
Okay, so what's the Guardians Fund?
Guardians Fund is something that's administered by the High Court, and the Guardians Fund is there to invest the money for the children. So the money will be invested with the Public Investment Commission, and that gets audited on an annual basis, but the government is in charge of your money.
Okay, so let's come back to the story. Mary and John, they've now passed away. First thing that happens, what happens? Talk me through this journey here. How does this whole thing work? You know, do you get a call from the magistrate or whatever to say, we want the...
Yeah, so remember, the death has to be registered with the master of the court.
Right.
Okay, so when the death is registered with the master of the court, the first thing he's going to ask, is there a will? If there is no will, then this is what Vernon is saying. He then takes control of that estate. And he takes control of the estate, and he will then appoint whoever he feels fit to look after that estate. And whoever he appoints has to come to him so that he has a look at it to make sure everything is done correctly.
So he can appoint Mary's sister, auntie...
100%.
Or anybody.
Anybody, 100%. 100%. So that is why it's so important to have a will. And I always use the comparison, you know, do you want to go to the government hospital? Or do you want to go to Greenacres Hospital, private versus government? So when you put a will in place, that's effectively what you're doing. You're saying, I want to nominate who I think should look after my kids. If we do your will, Old Mutual will be your executor. Old Mutual will create a trust for your kids. So it will be private. It doesn't have to go to the Guardians Fund. It will be private. A lot of your wishes will then be granted within the private space instead of just left open-ended for the master to decide. If that makes sense, Gary.
Yeah, it does make sense.
So that is the difference. And that is why a will is so important. And that's why I said earlier, you know, it's crazy that you live your whole life and acquire all these assets and not have a will in place to make sure certain things are taken care of. And because it's National Wills Week, we're saying, guys, talk to us. Talk to one of our financial planners. Let us have the discussion with you. Let us look at your situation.
Because everyone is different.
Because everybody's different. Look at what your wants are. Look at what your needs are. And let's put a plan in place and let's put the will in place. So that whatever you want to happen will happen in the form of the will.
And how prescriptive can mom and dad be in the will? I mean, can they say, well, Johnny's getting the car and that's finished and clear, that can't be contested, and our daughter will get paid out half at the age of 30, and the other one will only get paid out when he's finished his degree as an engineer? Or how prescriptive can they be?
Yeah, so remember, I think you can't rule from the grave. So I just want to say that, you can't decide everything from the grave. But you can put your wishes in there. And I mean, your wishes are exactly that. It's your wishes. And as far as being fair, so one thing the law is very clear about with your kids is you cannot favor your kids. Every child has to be taken care of equally. So you can't say only my daughter can inherit when this happens, but my son can't if that happens. It's unfair. So the law doesn't allow for that. You have to be fair. So if it applies to the one child, it's got to apply to all the kids. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And these days, you don't have that simple nuclear family. That mom, dad, and kids. You've got maybe an adopted kid. Maybe you've got a child with somebody else. Maybe there's a divorce somewhere along the line. How is that navigated?
Well, I think obviously that's where the will is important. Yeah. You want to leave a legacy, and you want people that you want to inherit, you want to be in your will. And it's important then to look at it to say, well, listen, I've got this child out of wedlock, as you said, or I'm remarried, so there's my kids and her kids and our kids, and at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I provide for who I want to provide, and therefore the will is important to draw that up and stipulate in that specific document how you want it to be distributed.
And then you guys will say, no, you can't do it like this, or this is better.
100%. And again, you cannot, even if the child is outside, it's got to be fair. Because remember, that child can contest it. That child can say, well, it's unfair. Why am I being, in brackets, discriminated?
Yeah. Because
I was born outside of marriage. So it can be absolutely disputed. So that's why, as you rightly say, you have to look at every circumstance and make good decisions based on your circumstances and what's important to you. And then that's where the advice comes in. And I think that's what you're alluding to. You then need to have the advice to say, but we don't think that's the right way to do it. Maybe this is a better way, or look at it from this angle. Maybe this is a better solution for you. So everybody's situation is different.
Other people might say, you can just pop into the bookstore or whatever and pick up a 10 rand wool or something.
Absolutely, Ethan, you're right. And then a lot of people actually think that can work. However, if that document is not signed according to what the regulation says, that can be disputed in a court. And the legality thereof will eventually mean that the court can decide that, listen, this is not legal enough, and you actually died interstate. Where you fought, you had it in place.
So rather be penny wise than pound foolish, and at this point in time, the penny is free because it's a free will month, free will campaign.
100%.
All right. If people want to, maybe they've just tuned in. If they want to get in touch with you to sort of get the advice, how do they do that?
Yeah, we've got a website, www.riskfreesolutions.co.za. You can pop us a message on the website. It allows you to do that. We're also on Facebook. So just search for Risk Free Solutions and you'll be able to find us there and pop us a private message. And we're also on LinkedIn. You can do the same there. But we find that the website's probably the best way because we've got an email attached to it there, and you can get hold of us.
Ask for Vernon DeVos or Vernon Rathbone, and you can certainly be assisted with sorting out your will once and for all. Don't delay. I know how it goes. I'll do it next month. Do it now.
Real, relevant radio. Kingfisher FM.